I stared at the message on my phone, my heart pounding. The name on the screen sent a jolt of dread through me, Marlo. After all these years, she had the audacity to reach out, her demands as brazen as they were infuriating. Arden, I need a $25 loan for my wedding. I know it's a lot, but I'm in a bind and you're the only one who can help. Remember how I was there for you back in college? Time to return the favor. Let me know ASAP. I scoffed, the memories of that betrayal still as raw as the day it happened. Marlo had been my closest friend in college, the one I trusted implicitly, until she shattered that trust, exposing my deepest secret to the entire campus, nearly ruining my life. Arden, honey, is everything okay? Everett's concerned voice snapped me out of my reverie. I looked up to see my husband standing by my side, brows furrowed. It's Marlo, I said, handing him the phone. She's asking for a $25,000 loan for her wedding. Everett's eyes widened as he read the message. After what she did to you in college? The nerve of her. He sat down next to me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. What are you going to do? I sighed, leaning into his comforting embrace. I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell, but another part of me... I trailed off, the familiar ache of betrayal resurfacing. Hey, Everett said softly, turning me to face him. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. We'll figure this out together. I smiled gratefully, knowing I could always count on Everett's unwavering support. After years of avoiding Marlo, this unexpected intrusion into my life had shaken me, but I was no longer the naive college student she had once exploited. I paused, steeling my resolve. I think we should use this as an opportunity to finally get the justice I've been craving all these years. Everett's brows rose, but he didn't interrupt as I continued. Marlo has never faced any real consequences for what she did. She just waltzed through life, while I had to pick up the pieces. But now she's getting married, and her fiancé has no idea what kind of person she really is. So you want to expose her? Everett asked, a glint of understanding in his eyes. I nodded. Exactly. We'll play along, act like we're willing to help her, and then, at her engagement party or wedding, we'll reveal the truth about her. Her lies, her manipulations, everything. Let her precious fiancé and all her friends see her for who she really is. Everett considered my plan, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I'm in. It's time Marlo finally faces the consequences of her actions. Relief flooded through me, and I pulled Everett into a tight hug. Thank you, my love. Together we'll make sure she never forgets what she did to me. As I held Everett, a fire ignited within me, a desire for retribution that had been smoldering for years. Marlo had once held the power to hurt me, to nearly destroy my life. But now the tables were about to turn. This was my chance to finally get the justice I deserved. After reading Marlo's audacious request, Everett and I sat in contemplative silence, the weight of her words hanging heavy between us. I could see the gears turning in his mind, his brow furrowed as he considered our next move. So what are you thinking? I finally asked, breaking the tension. Everett shifted in his seat, turning to face me. Well, we could just ignore her, pretend we never saw the message, and move on with our lives. I shook my head. No, I don't think I can do that, not after what she did to me in college. The way she betrayed my trust, humiliated me in front of everyone. I clenched my fists, the memories still raw and painful. Everett reached out and gently placed his hand over mine, his touch calming the storm of emotions within me. I understand, Arden. I know how much that hurt you, and I don't blame you for wanting some kind of justice. Then what do you think we should do? I asked, searching his eyes for guidance. Well, Everett began, we could play along, act like we're willing to help her, and then, when the time is right, we expose her for the conniving, deceitful person she is. I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction at the idea. You mean, reveal all her lies and manipulations in front of her fiancé and friends? Let them see the real Marlo? Everett nodded, a determined glint in his eye. Exactly. We'll gather all the evidence we can, her affairs, her financial misdeeds, everything. And then we'll confront her, publicly, at her engagement party or wedding. Let her see the consequences of her actions. The thought of Marlo's world crumbling around her was almost too good to be true. Do you really think we can pull that off? I asked, a hint of uncertainty creeping into my voice. Everett reached out and cupped my face, his gentle touch a stark contrast to the intensity of his gaze. I know we can, Arden. We'll be thorough, we'll be careful, and we'll make sure justice is served. For you, for our family, and for all the people Marlowe has hurt. I nodded, my resolve strengthening with each of his words. Okay, let's do it. Let's show Marlowe that she can't get away with what she did to me, not anymore. That's my girl, Everett said, a proud smile spreading across his face. He pulled me into a tight embrace, and I allowed myself to melt into his comforting warmth. As I held on to Everett, the memories of Marlowe's betrayal resurfaced, a painful reminder of how she had once shattered my world. But this time, things would be different. This time, I would be the one in control, the one who held the power to expose her true nature. I'll never forgive her for what she did, I murmured into Everett's shoulder, but I'm ready to make her pay for it. Everett's grip tightened around me, and I knew he was just as determined as I was to see this through. Together, we would uncover Marlowe's web of lies and deceit, and watch as her perfect world came crashing down around her. The thought filled me with a sense of dark satisfaction, a hunger for revenge that had been simmering for far too long. Marlowe had once held the power to hurt me, but now the tables had turned. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. With Everett's support, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We were going to expose Marlowe's true colors, and this time she wouldn't be able to escape the consequences of her actions. Okay, so where do we start? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. First, we need to gather as much evidence as we can, Everett said, his brow furrowed in concentration. Anything that can prove she's been lying and manipulating people. I nodded, already mentally sifting through the memories of our college days. I remember she was always flirting with her ex-boyfriend, even when she was supposedly committed to her then-boyfriend. And didn't she do something shady with her finances? Exactly, Everett replied. We need to dig into her recent history, see what kind of dirt we can find. I'll start looking into her financial records, see if there's any evidence of fraud or mishandling of funds. And I'll see what I can find out about her ex-boyfriend and this supposed affair, I said, determination stealing my voice. If she's still seeing him behind Dalton's back, that could be the key to bringing her down. Everett reached over and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. I know this isn't easy, Arden, but we're in this together. We'll make sure Marlowe pays for what she's done. I returned his reassuring smile, grateful for his unwavering support. I know, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes to get the justice I've been craving all these years. Over the next few days, Everett and I worked tirelessly, piecing together the evidence that would ultimately destroy Marlowe's carefully crafted facade. I reached out to old college friends, discreetly inquiring about Marlowe's recent behavior, and the stories they shared only fueled my desire for revenge. Can you believe she's been spreading these awful rumors about you, even all these years later? One former classmate told me, her voice laced with disgust. And did you know she's been cheating on her fiancé with her ex-boyfriend, the guy she swore she was over back in college? I clenched my jaw, my hands trembling with anger. No, I had no idea. But I'm going to make sure Dalton knows the truth before it's too late. As I relayed the information to Everett, he shook his head in disbelief. Unbelievable. The nerve of her to try and ruin your life all over again. But don't worry, we're going to put an end to her little charade once and for all. Together, we compiled a detailed dossier of Marlowe's transgressions, documenting her infidelity, her financial deceptions, and the lies she had told over the years. The evidence was damning, and we knew that when the time came, it would be impossible for Marlowe to wriggle her way out of it. We're all set, Everett said, giving me a reassuring smile. Now all we have to do is wait for the perfect opportunity to strike. I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. Okay, let's do this. It's time Marlowe learned that you can't betray me and get away with it. With our plan in motion, I felt a sense of both trepidation and anticipation. The chance to finally confront Marlowe and see her world crumble was both exhilarating and daunting. But I knew that Everett was by my side, and together we would make sure that Marlowe's day of reckoning had arrived. With the evidence we had gathered, Everett and I felt confident in our ability to finally bring Marlowe to justice. but the thought of confronting her still filled me with a mix of emotions. Excitement, trepidation, and a lingering sense of unease. "Are you sure you're ready for this, Arden?" Everett asked, his brow furrowed with concern as he studied my expression. I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. "I have to be. After everything Marlowe put me through, I can't let her get away with it anymore." Everett nodded, reaching out to give my hand a reassuring squeeze. "I'm here with you every step of the way. We'll make sure she pays for what she's done." Gathering my courage, I picked up my phone and began composing a message to Marlowe. I needed to play along, at least for now if we were going to pull off our plan. "Marlowe, I've been thinking about your request," I typed, my fingers trembling slightly. "I know we've had our differences in the past, but you're still my friend, and I want to help. Would you be willing to let Everett and I attend your engagement party? I'd love the chance to celebrate with you." I paused, reading the message over and over again, before finally hitting send. The response was almost immediate. "Arden, I'm so glad you're willing to put the past behind us. Of course, you and Everett are more than welcome to come to the engagement party. It would mean the world to me to have you there. Let me know if you need any other details." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of disgust at Marlowe's feigned enthusiasm. It was as if she had completely forgotten the pain she had caused me, the way she had betrayed my trust all those years ago. "She bought it," I said to Everett, my voice laced with a mixture of triumph and trepidation. Everett's expression hardened, a steely determination in his eyes. "Good. Now we can put the final pieces of our plan in place." Over the next few days, Everett and I worked tirelessly to ensure that every detail of our confrontation was meticulously planned. We pored over the evidence we had gathered, rehearsing our lines, anticipating Marlowe's potential reactions. "What if she tries to deny everything?" I asked, my brow furrowed with worry. "Then we'll be ready," Everett assured me. "We have the proof, Arden. Marlowe won't be able to wriggle her way out of this one." I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This was our chance to finally get the justice I had been craving for years. No more hiding, no more running. It was time to face Marlowe head-on. As the engagement party drew closer, the tension in our household grew palpable. Lila, our 8-year-old daughter, could sense the change in the air, and she would often ask if everything was okay. "It will be, sweetheart," I would tell her, managing a reassuring smile. "Mommy and Daddy just have some important business to take care of." Lila would nod, her bright eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. I hated keeping her in the dark, but I knew that this wasn't something she needed to be involved in. This was my battle, one that I had to fight for the sake of our family. The night before the party, Everett and I sat together, going over our plan one last time. We were as ready as we could be, and the anticipation was nearly palpable. "Are you sure you want to do this, Arden?" Everett asked, his voice soft and gentle. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "I have to, Everett. For my own peace of mind and for our family's future. It's time Marlowe finally faced the consequences of her actions." Everett nodded, pulling me into a warm embrace. "Then let's do this. Together." The night before the engagement party, I could barely sleep. Anticipation and nerves swirled together, creating a restless anxiety that refused to subside. Everett, sensing my unease, pulled me close, his steady heartbeat a reassuring rhythm. "It's going to be okay, Arden," he murmured, his warm breath tickling my cheek. "We've got this." I nodded, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. "I know, it's just... what if something goes wrong? What if Marlowe manages to wiggle her way out of this somehow?" Everett's grip tightened around me, and I could feel the determination in his embrace. "That's not going to happen. We've got all the evidence we need. Marlowe won't be able to talk her way out of this." I wanted to believe him, to let his confidence bolster my own, but a part of me still harbored doubts. Marlowe had always been skilled at manipulation, at twisting the truth to suit her own needs. What if she managed to do it again? "Hey," Everett said, gently tilting my chin so that I was looking into his eyes. "I know you're worried, but we've got this. Together, we're going to make sure Marlowe finally gets what she deserves." His words stirred a fire within me, reminding me of the justice I had craved for so long. Marlowe had to pay for what she'd done, and this was our chance to make it happen. "You're right," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We're going to do this, Everett, for me, for our family, and for everyone else she's hurt. Everett smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. That's my girl. Now, let's go over the plan one more time, just to be sure we're ready. We spent the next several hours meticulously reviewing our strategy, anticipating every possible scenario, and rehearsing our lines. The evidence we had gathered was overwhelming, and we knew that Marlowe would have no choice but to face the consequences of her actions. As the engagement party drew closer, the tension in our household grew palpable. Lila, our 8-year-old daughter, could sense the change in the air, and she would often ask if everything was okay. It will be, sweetheart, I would tell her, managing a reassuring smile. Mommy and Daddy just have some important business to take care of. Lila would nod, her bright eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. I hated keeping her in the dark, but I knew that this wasn't something she needed to be involved in. This was my battle, one that I had to fight for the sake of our family. The night before the party, Everett and I sat together, going over our plan one last time. We were as ready as we could be, and the anticipation was nearly palpable. "Are you sure you want to do this, Arden?" Everett asked, his voice soft and gentle. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "I have to, Everett, for my own peace of mind and for our family's future. It's time Marlowe finally faced the consequences of her actions." Everett nodded, pulling me into a warm embrace. "Then let's do this, together." As I held on to Everett, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Tomorrow, Marlowe's world would come crashing down, and I would finally have the closure I'd been seeking for all these years. No more hiding, no more running. It was time to confront her, once and for all. The moment of reckoning had arrived. As Everett and I walked into the lavish engagement party, the air was thick with anticipation. Marlowe greeted us with a wide, saccharine smile, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to descend upon her. "Arden? Everett, I'm so glad you could make it," she gushed, giving me a hug that felt more like a trap than a genuine display of affection. "I'm so happy we could put the past behind us." I forced a smile, my stomach churning with a mixture of nerves and determination. "Of course, Marlowe. We wouldn't have missed this for the world." Everett placed a reassuring hand on the small of my back, his silent support giving me the strength to carry on. As we mingled with the other guests, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Marlowe was the center of attention, basking in the adoration of her friends and family, completely unaware of the impending downfall that awaited her. Finally, as the party was in full swing, Everett and I exchanged a meaningful glance. "It was time. Marlowe, can we have a word with you and Dalton?" I asked, my voice calm and steady. Marlowe's brow furrowed, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. "Of course, Arden. Is everything all right?" "We have something we need to discuss," Everett said, his tone firm and unwavering. "It's important." Marlowe led us to a secluded corner of the room, Dalton trailing behind her, a confused expression on his face. "What's going on?" Dalton asked, his eyes darting between Everett and me. I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. "Dalton, I'm sorry, but there's something you need to know about Marlowe." Marlowe's eyes widened, a flash of panic crossing her face. "Arden, what are you talking about?" "Marlowe, I have evidence that you've been cheating on Dalton with your ex-boyfriend," I began, my voice unwavering. "And that's not all. We also have proof of your financial deceptions and the lies you've been telling everyone for years." Dalton's face contorted in a mix of shock and disbelief. "What? Marlowe, is this true?" Marlowe's facade crumbled, and she frantically tried to defend herself. "Dalton, no, it's not what you think. Arden is just making this up. She's always had it out for me." But Everett stepped forward, his expression grim. "That's not true, Marlowe. We have the evidence right here." He pulled out a thick folder filled with documents and messages and handed it to Dalton. Dalton's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages, his face growing paler with each passing moment. This is all true?" Marlowe's eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape, but there was nowhere for her to hide. The guests had started to gather, drawn by the commotion, and Dalton's cries had captured their attention. "Dalton, please, you have to believe me," Marlowe pleaded, her voice laced with desperation. "Arden is lying. She's trying to ruin my life." But Dalton shook his head, his expression hardening. "No, Marlowe, the evidence is right here. You've been lying to me this entire time." The air was thick with tension as the reality of Marlowe's betrayal sank in. The guests murmured in shock, their eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and disgust. Marlowe's facade finally crumbled, and she broke down, tears streaming down her face. No, this can't be happening. I felt a sense of satisfaction as I watched her world come crashing down around her. This was the justice I had been seeking, the retribution I had craved for years. Marlowe was finally facing the consequences of her actions. As the party descended into chaos, Everett wrapped his arm around my shoulder, pulling me close. "It's over, Arden. You did it." I nodded, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The nightmare was finally coming to an end, and I could finally start to heal. As the confrontation unfolded, the engagement party descended into chaos. Marlowe's desperate attempts to defend herself only served to further incriminate her, as Dalton pored over the damning evidence presented by Everett and me. "I can't believe this," Dalton said, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and betrayal. "All this time you've been lying to me, Marlowe, cheating on me, manipulating our finances." Marlowe's face was a mask of desperation, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before our eyes. "Dalton, please, you have to understand. Arden is just trying to ruin my life. She's always hated me, ever since college." But Dalton shook his head, his expression hardening. "No, Marlowe, the proof is right here. You've been deceiving me and everyone else for years. I can't be with someone I can't trust." Marlowe's eyes widened in horror as the realization dawned on her. "Dalton, no, you can't do this. We're supposed to be getting married." Dalton stepped back, his jaw set with determination. "Not anymore. I'm calling off the wedding. I want nothing to do with you, Marlowe. Not after this." Marlowe's facade crumbled, and she began to sob uncontrollably, her desperate pleas falling on deaf ears as the guests watched in stunned silence. I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction, knowing that Marlowe was finally facing the consequences of her actions. Everett placed a reassuring hand on my back, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. "It's over, Arden. You did it." I nodded, my heart still pounding with adrenaline. "Yes, it's over. Marlowe can't hurt me anymore." As the news of Marlowe's betrayal spread through the crowd, the guests began to murmur and whisper, casting judgmental glares in her direction. Dalton's family and friends quickly distanced themselves, leaving Marlowe isolated and ostracized. I watched as Marlowe's world crumbled around her, the weight of her lies and manipulations finally catching up to her. She frantically tried to salvage the situation, but her desperate pleas only served to further alienate her from those she had once called friends. Everett and I slipped away from the chaos, our work here done. As we walked to our car, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, satisfaction, and a hint of guilt. "How are you feeling?" Everett asked, his voice soft and understanding. I let out a long sigh. "I don't know. Part of me is glad that Marlowe finally got what she deserved, but I can't help but feel a little conflicted about it all." Everett nodded, reaching over to give my hand a gentle squeeze. "I know, Arden. It's not an easy thing to go through, even after all she's done to you. I never thought I'd be the one to bring her down like this," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted to stoop to her level." "Hey," Everett said, turning to face me. "You didn't stoop to anything. You and we simply sought justice. Marlowe brought this all on herself. You have nothing to feel guilty about." I searched his eyes, finding the familiar warmth and reassurance that I had come to depend on. "You're right. I want to move on. You know, I don't want to dwell on the past anymore." Everett smiled, pulling me into a comforting embrace. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll focus on our future, on our family. Marlowe's downfall is behind us now." As I held on to Everett, I felt the tension in my body begin to melt away. The nightmare was finally over, and I could start to move forward, leaving the past where it belonged. With Everett by my side, I knew that I had the strength to rebuild and find the happiness I so deserved. In the aftermath of the confrontation, I found myself struggling with a range of emotions. Relief, satisfaction, and even a twinge of guilt warred within me as I grappled with the consequences of our actions. Everett, as always, was my steadfast rock, providing comfort and reassurance as I navigated this complex emotional landscape. "How are you feeling, Arden?" he asked one evening, his brow furrowed with concern as he studied my expression. I let out a long, heavy sigh. I don't know. Part of me is glad that Marlo finally faced the consequences of her actions, but I can't help but feel conflicted about the whole thing. Everett nodded, reaching out to give my hand a gentle squeeze. I understand. It's not an easy thing to go through, even after everything she's done to you. I paused, struggling to put my thoughts into words. I never wanted to become the kind of person who would stoop to her level. You know? I never wanted revenge to consume me. But you didn't, Everett said, his voice firm and reassuring. You and we sought justice. Marlo brought this all on herself. You have nothing to feel guilty about. I met his gaze, finding the familiar warmth and understanding that had become my lifeline. You're right. I guess I want to move on, to focus on our family and our future. I don't want to dwell on the past anymore. Everett smiled, pulling me into a comforting embrace. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Marlo's downfall is behind us now. It's time to look ahead and build the life we deserve. As I held on to Everett, I felt the tension in my body start to melt away. The nightmare was finally over, and I could begin to heal and move forward. With Everett by my side, I knew that I had the strength to rebuild and find the happiness I so deserved. In the weeks that followed, I watched as Marlo's world crumbled around her. She lost her fiancé, her friends, and even her job, as the truth of her deceptions spread like wildfire. Dalton, devastated by the revelation of her betrayal, cut all ties with her, leaving her isolated and alone. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her, despite everything she had done. Seeing the once confident and manipulative Marlo reduced to a shell of her former self was a sobering reminder of the consequences of our actions. Do you ever feel bad for her? I asked Everett one evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the sunset. Everett sighed, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. Honestly, a little. I know what she did to you was unforgivable, but no one deserves to have their entire life fall apart like that. I nodded, leaning into his embrace. I know, I want to move on, to focus on our own lives and our family. I don't want to dwell on the past anymore. Then that's what we'll do, Everett said, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. We'll build a future filled with love and happiness, one that Marlo can never take away from us. I smiled, feeling a sense of renewed purpose and determination. Marlo's downfall had been a necessary step, but it was time to turn our attention to the positive, to our relationship, our daughter Lila, and the countless possibilities that lay ahead. As we sat together watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The past may have been painful, but it had made me stronger, more resilient. And with Everett by my side, I knew that I could face whatever the future had in store. I love you, Everett, I murmured, snuggling closer to him. I love you too, Arden, he replied, his voice filled with warmth and affection. Together, we can conquer anything. And in that moment, I knew that he was right. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family and emerge stronger than ever before.